Well, hello everybody. I'm Ellie Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets, and we do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each time we ask ourselves what happened today, and what does it tell us about the coming days. I do this show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday, broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. It's archived on YouTube. It's available to you there. Just pop over to that area. You can register for the broadcast. And if you want, you can always ask questions. One of the things I like to do is to entertain your questions. And the way you find out about those is pop in here in NeoTA TV, and down in this area there's some instructions about how to get in contact with me. All I ask is that you do give me some sort of indication about what you're trying to do, the direction, and what kind of time frame you have, which helps me. If you have general questions, that's all right too. And as far as these markets, they did crawl higher today, barely, but higher nonetheless. Right across the board, each and every one of them did trade higher today. We had the actual opposite everywhere else, with the exception of crude oil, which spiked back up after being down. All commodities sold down, gold, silver in particular. Indexes up again, and as you probably know by now, when that happens, that means it can continue to happen. When we look at these indexes and we consider what they're doing, we're on a daily time frame here, and we have ABCD structures that are in place and that are stretching up towards their respective projections. In the case of the S&P, for example, it's up around 2041 or so, and it's trying to crawl up there, and it looks like it's going to actually crawl up there before it's over. If we look at it, we're over the high. We got multiple breaks of multiple swing points on some of these indexes, and that is what's powering this higher and continues to power this higher. Nobody ever wants to leave the party until the party is definitely done. And right now, they're not certain that the party is done, therefore they continue to play. So if we move over to the Nasdaq, now the Nasdaq actually, all these indexes, many of the sectors have the same structure, and that is that they have an ABCD structure off these lows. They got that pullback that we were looking for, right, that held, and then you get the projection higher. Now, the Nasdaq's close to fulfilling its projection. And that's true here, and it's also true on the NDX. And so when we look at those two indexes, and the NDX is the one that's most stretched, so we'll look at its numbers first, or actually we'll just look at it as a proxy. 40.95 roughly, 42.71. So, if we do the math, that's about 170, I'm not sure exactly what that was. 40.95, about 176, right? 176 on this takes you up to about 43.82, and tonight we are at 43.85. So as you can see here, this thing has been the powerhouse. This is what's been taking us higher, and as of tonight, it's actually met its projection. So, we're at the projection. We've extended to where we want to, and you can see how it's slowing down as a result. It did, however, get over yesterday's highs, 43.84, and stay over them, which means it's going to try again tomorrow to push higher. But this thing is setting up to get a retrace. And that retrace, more than likely, is going to bring it back to do a retest regen off the prior swing point high that it broke. More than likely, it's going to come back within 6 bars. If that's true, you can get to the bottom of the bar, which is the breakout here. It's the volume on this bar, the volume on that bar, which is really nothing, right? But it's the retest regen zone. That's where you find out whether this thing really is going to go higher or not. And if you kind of think about it, if it comes back and does that and does go higher, well, what does that do? That sets up the ABCD structure to take it even higher. And why would that probably be the case? Well, if you look over at the weekly chart, there you have an ABCD structure as well, but it hasn't broke higher yet. And that is from here back down. Well, I shouldn't say it hasn't broke higher, it has, but it hasn't really began to extend yet. And if you take it on up and do this leg equidistant up there, that goes a lot higher. Matter of fact, it would take the NDX and the Nasdaq back to the highs recorded back in 2000. So that's potentially what is in place. In the meantime, it does look like we're getting a little bit extended here and probably going to get some sort of a pullback. And if we look at the Russell breaks over the highs, extends as well. So all 5 indexes extend higher. That push is continuing. You're extended on the NDX and on the composite, 2 projections, almost on the composite, at that on the NDX, but you're not elsewhere. So what does that mean? Well, if this market wants to continue higher without any kind of break, what you would see is you would see the extended indexes just come up in here and pause, right? And kind of trade sideways in some smaller range, just back and forth, while the rest of them keep inching higher until they meet their projections, and then they would do the same, and then at that point maybe this one kicks back off and goes again. And I'm speaking of the NDX, not the Russell. So you get some consolidation on the extended indexes while you get the continued push on the others, and then while they consolidate, this one begins to push again. That's how you can get markets that just seemingly go up forever. And that's how the rotation actually works. And so that is what one should be looking at here and seeing if it's going to happen. Because that's the sort of thing that people will wait for the retrace, but the retrace never comes, and it's because they just rotate instead of retrace. If we look over at the sectors and see how they are playing out on the sectors, the question is are they supporting this ideal of rotation? We saw the IBB come alive, and I was doing a look at Amgen for one of the members slash viewers on Sunday night. And of course, I was talking about the IBB and saying, it doesn't look as good as it has, and it did go up again today, and it went up on a little bit more volume, coming back over to test these swing point highs. But this index looks worn to me. It just doesn't have the feel that it had before. But if we get that rotation, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the money just rotates back into this and into the healthcare and sees what is there. And I was actually going to put in Amgen instead of Amazon. Let me put AMGM. Let's put Amgen in. Here's Amgen, and so Amgen, a little bit of a push today, back up, but not doing a lot down here yet, and I just don't have a good feel for that particular sector. If we look at the ITB, which is the builders, they're up at new highs. What a run! I mean, this looked like a total collapse off of earnings. Yet they spike right back up and just go straight back to new highs. And believe me, I did not expect that. Transportation sector, we've got the stuff happening with the rail cars blowing up in, I think it was West Virginia or North Carolina, somewhere over in the east. And, I don't know if that's what's playing on this, but this thing continues to struggle. The transportation sector really hasn't been that healthy for a while. The other strength area has been the SOX. That also has finished up an ABCD structure, which is also a big player inside the NDX. It did get to a new high today, and it's going to try to test that top probably tomorrow. But that one also looks extended. XLB is another sector that's starting to run. It's over multiple swing points, continues to push. XLE got a push today as oil reversed, ended up higher. It's up there testing the swing point high back into the gap area. And so you can see sectors in general, for the most part, are supporting this ideal of a continued push. Here's the XLF also doing it, testing this swing point high now. Top there is 24.51. Today got to 24.51 and held. So we'll see if it breaks over it tomorrow. XLI also has an ABCD structure to take it to the top. XLP is trying to climb back, although it's a little bit weaker. XLU actually did an under-over which is basically a 2-bar reversal at this point, given the way this thing extended down. We'll see if that actually is enough of a 2-bar, but it tests lows, holds, going to try to push back up here, at least for some sort of a bounce before maybe some more downside. XLV we were just talking about, maybe this one's going to break out. You got multiple swing point highs on multiple time frames if it does. And XLY, this is another one that's been pushing. This pushes up, over, back under, less volume. That looks like it's also going to try to come back. So you got the extended ones ready to go sideways or pull back in. You got those that aren't extended still pushing. And that is what rotation is all about. If we look at the ox markets, you know, the thing that I would bring your attention to here really is the dollar. The dollar is still hanging that range. Looks to me like the dollar is going to trade back in this 24.40 area. If I look at oil, oil reversed and came back up, although it does look like it wants to test that high, which is a retest regen on this low. I suspect this is just in a consolidation before it comes back down and tests lower again. If I look over at the bonds, now the bonds have been in a free fall since the highs, made the highs on volume, and then have free fallen all the way back down. That was a 10% move up, 10% move right back down, volume expanding today. It is coming into that big bar I've been talking about. You know, it's into it now. That top was 127.68. We're at 126.26. And it's also coming into this large bar. Bottom of that one's 124.20. It does look like that's the next target. Another $2 down. Kind of hard to believe, but that's what it's trying to shoot for. And gold. We talked about gold and silver getting whacked. If you look at gold, gold gets under that low, if you go back and look at the weekly now, is a breakdown under the bar, which is not what you want to see. That retest regen zone gets underneath it. Gold needs to hold that this week if in fact it is going to consolidate and try to move higher. If not, gold's still stuck in a downtrend. And so the big push is back into the big bar. That low is 113.74. You don't want to see it get down there, but right now it looks like that's what it's trying to do. If I look at the overseas, so let me pop overseas right quick. And I want to go to Europe because Europe's the story, right? The two big geopolitical events taking place are overseas in Europe: Ukraine, Greece. You can see up here, this is holding. It tries to come back, holds, doesn't give it up. France, same thing. France tries to come back. You know, these guys with QE sitting in the wings simply do not want to give it up. And that's been the story of QE everywhere we've looked over the years, and it looks to continue to be the story. So now for the final thoughts. Well, when we think about these markets and we think about how we've pushed higher, we've broken multiple swing points, we've gotten over this swing point high. We're looking at the S&P 500 on a daily. If we pull over the weekly, just like we were talking ABCD structure on the other indexes, the NDX, the Nasdaq, well, you also have one here, and that ABCD structure has kicked off as we've gotten over these highs. Right now, it's not as if it's, you know, cast in stone. And given what we've seen, you know, the real question is are we going to get a pullback, you know, that comes deeper into here, or are we simply going to stay at these highs, continue to maybe push here and consolidate elsewhere? I don't know the answer to that. All I know is from past history and the fact that this market is still in a bullish trend, and that this market has discounted not only bad earnings but bad economics and continue to power up. You know, I can only believe that this ABCD structure, you know, the idea is to take this up and fulfill this structure. That's a long way up if it does it. We're talking about more than 2100. It would take it a while to do it, 2 or 3 months probably. The next big event on the horizon outside of Greece is going to be earnings again here stateside. That's in the middle of April up until, like, say, May when it really hits. And that will be the next catalyst. And if we think about the calendar now, that takes you out roughly 2 months from now before the earnings start to hit, about 9 weeks or so. 9 weeks is a long time. Markets can move a lot in 9 weeks. So if I'm looking at this and I'm looking at, say, this run off the October lows back to the highs, we could get that sort of run here. I mean, look at the comparison in terms of the leg up, right? From the October lows back up, you got a nice long consolidation. Right now you're getting ready to extend again. How does that look? Well, it just looks like a nice consolidation from this low to the highs, right? You can expect it to do the same sort of thing on the upside. So when I look at it from that perspective, you got to give the benefit of the doubt to the bulls and assume that these guys are going to find a way to take QE and to just crawl this thing higher. Bull markets don't let you in, bears don't let you out, and right now they're doing their best. When you look at this on a daily chart, they're doing the best to just keep clawing this thing higher and make it harder and harder for anybody to buy it. That's the way it's done, folks. Well, that's it for tonight. I have no viewer questions, so I'm going to leave it a little bit short. Call it a night. And we'll take a look at it tomorrow. Right now, we're getting to the point where we are going to see either consolidation or retrace on those sectors and indexes that have driven us higher. Question is will it be a pullback, of any significance, or is simply just going to be a consolidation sideways and rotation elsewhere? If it is the latter, rotation elsewhere, this market's not going to let you in very easy. If you get a pullback, everybody wants to buy the pullback, right? So it makes it hard to believe they're going to give it to you. Have yourself a great night. I'll see you next time. Take care. Good night.